The harmattan wind, a dry, whispering presence, rustled through the tall guinea corn stalks surrounding Ajegunja village, carrying the scent of wood smoke and the rhythmic pulse of distant drums. Bisi, a young woman with the skin color of sun-ripened yams and eyes that held the warmth of a hearth fire, hummed a gentle tune as she meticulously sorted through a basket of freshly harvested egusi seeds. Life in Ajegunja was a vibrant tapestry, woven with the threads of tradition, close-knit community, and the predictable rhyme of the seasons. Bisi's days were full, each one marked by the familiar sounds of her mother's gentle scolding as she helped with household chores. The shared laughter and whispered secrets with her friends by the flowing river, the rhythmic pounding of the mortar as she prepared the evening meal, and, of course, the stolen moments with Gbenga, the village blacksmith's son. Bisi's childhood had been idyllic, filled with simple joys of village life. She remembered playing hide and seek among the baobab trees, listening to her grandmother's captivating folktales under the starlit sky, and learning the intricate acts of pottery from her mother. She had always been a dreamer, her mind filled with visions of a future where she could have a thriving market stall, selling her mother's famous pepper sauce, a concoction so fiery and flavorful it was known throughout the neighboring villages. She dreamed of a loving husband, a house filled with laughter, and a brood of children who would carry on the traditions of their ancestors. Gbenga had seemed to be the embodiment of all her dreams. He was strong and handsome, his muscles rippling beneath his skin as he walked the forge, shaping raw metal into tools of beauty and practicality. His laughter was infectious, a deep rumble in his chest that could chase away the shadows of any worry. Their courtship had been a slow dance of shared glances, whispered promises, and stolen moments under the watchful eyes of the villagers. They would walk hand in hand through the fields, Gbenga pointing out the constellations in the vast night sky, Bisi sharing her hopes and aspirations for the future. He would tell her of his plans to expand his father's forge, to make it the most renowned in the region. He promised to build her the biggest and most beautiful market store anyone had ever seen. He spoke of their future together, a future painted in vibrant hues of love, prosperity, and family. One humid afternoon, as the sun beat down relentlessly on the village, Bisi felt a strange flutter in her stomach, a queasiness that lingered and refused to dissipate. Days turned into weeks, and the familiar rhythm of her monthly cycle faltered, leaving her with a knot of fear tightening in her heart. She confided in Iya, her close friend, a woman with advice, knowing eyes, and a gentle, compassionate spirit. Iya listened patiently, her expression growing serious as Bisi recounted her concerns. When Bisi finished, Iya took her hand, her touch warm and reassuring. "Bisi," she said softly, "I think you are with a child." Iya's words struck Bisi like a thunderbolt. A whirlwind of emotions swelled within her: joy, fear, confusion, and the desperate hope that Gbenga would share her happiness. She found him at the forge, the air thick with the smell of burning coal and the clang of his hammer. Taking a deep breath, she told him. His reaction was a stark, devastating contrast to the joyous celebration she had envisioned. His smile vanished, his brow furrowed, and his eyes, usually filled with warmth and affection, turned cold and distant. "It's not mine," he said, his voice flat and dismissive, as if he were swatting away a bothersome fly. Bisi's world tilted on its axis. The joy that had blossomed in her heart withered and died, replaced by a chilling wave of disbelief. "Gbenga," she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "How can you say that? You know it's yours." He shrugged, turning back to his work as if the conversation were over. "Look, Bisi, I'm not ready for this. You will figure it out." His colorless words were like shards of glass piercing her heart. She stumbled back, the weight of his rejection crushing her. She ran home, the tears she had held back now streaming down her face, a torrent of grief and betrayal. Her parents' reaction was equally devastating. Her father, a respected elder in the village, looked at her with a mixture of disappointment, anger, and shame. "Bisi," he said, his voice heavy with sorrow, "you have brought dishonor upon our family." Her mother, usually a source of comfort and understanding, turned away, unable to meet her gaze, her face etched with a pain that mirrored Bisi's own. The news spread through Ajegunja like a harmattan fire, consuming everything in its path. Whisper followed Bisi everywhere she went, turning her into an outcast in her own community. Her former friends avoided her, their laughter replaced by cruel gossip and judgmental stares. She felt like a pariah, branded by the scorn of those she had grown up with, the weight of their condemnation a heavy burden on their shoulders. One evening, as the sun dripped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the village, her father summoned her to his hut. "You must leave," he said, his voice filled with sadness but firm and resolute. "You cannot have you here any longer. You have dishonored us. You must pay the price for your transgression." Bisi's heart shattered into a million pieces. She was being banished from her home, rejected by her family, and ostracized by her community. She packed a few major belongings, her tears falling silently onto the worn fabric of her bag. As she walked out of the village under the cloak of darkness, the familiar sounds of her childhood fading into the distance, she felt a proud sense of loss, a deep gnawing fear for the uncertain future that lay ahead. Her journey was arduous, a testament to her resilience and unwavering determination. She walked for days, her pregnant belly growing heavier with each step, a constant reminder of the life growing within her. She slept under the vast star-studded sky, exposed to the elements. Her only companion, the whispering wind and the distant calls of the nocturnal animals. She begged for food and water, her pride slowly eroding with each outstretched hand, each whispered plea. She encountered both kindness and cruelty on her journey, some offering her shelter and food, others turning her away with harsh words and judgmental glares. One old woman, her face etched with wrinkles and her eyes filled with compassion, shared her major meal with Bisi and offered her a place of rest for the night. She told Bisi stories of her own struggles, her words of encouragement giving Bisi the strength to carry on. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, she reached a bustling town, a world away from the familiar rhythms and close-knit community of Ajegunja. Here, she was just another anonymous face in the teeming crowd, lost in the labyrinthine streets and bustling marketplace. She found work as a washerwoman, her hands raw and chapped from scrubbing clothes from dawn till dusk. She rented a tiny cramped room in a dilapidated building, barely large enough to turn around in, but it was a sanctuary, a place where she could escape the judging eyes and whispered condemnations of the world. The months that followed were a relentless cycle of hard work and loneliness. Bisi's body ached, her spirit felt bruised and battered, but she persevered, driven by the fierce, unwavering determination for her unborn child. She clung to the hope that one day things would get better, that the sun would eventually break through the clouds of her despair. The day her son was born was both terrifying and miraculous, a moment of profound joy amidst the hardship and uncertainty. She held him in her arms, tiny and perfect, his skin soft and warm against hers. She named him Adi, a name that resonated with strength, reality, and hope. He was her crown, her redemption, the light that pierced through the darkness of her despair, the embodiment of her unwavering love and resilience. Raising Ade was a constant uphill struggle. Bisi worked tirelessly, taking on extra jobs, sacrificing everything to ensure her son had food, clothing, and a decent education. She poured all her love and energy into raising him, determined to give him a life filled with opportunities, a life she herself had been denied. She taught him the importance of hard work, honesty, and compassion. She instilled in him the values of their ancestors, the traditions of their village, and the strength to overcome any obstacle that life threw his way. Ade grew into a bright and curious boy, inheriting his mother's warm, expressive eyes and a smile that could melt the iciest heart. He He was intelligent and inquisitive, always asking questions, eager to learn about the world around him. It was Bisi's constant source of joy, her reason for living, her motivation to keep pushing forward even when she felt like giving up. One evening, as Ade sat beside her, poring over his school books, his brow furrowed in concentration, he looked up at her, his voice hesitant, a shadow of uncertainty in his eyes. "Mama," he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, "where is my father?" Bisi's heart clenched. She had known this question would come, but that didn't make it any easier. She took a deep breath, gathered her strength, and told him. Bisi hugged him tightly, her heart overflowing with love for her son. His words were a balm to her wounded soul. She knew then that she had done the right thing, that all the sacrifices she had made were worth it. Years passed. Ade grew into a handsome young man, intelligent and kind. He excelled in school, always at the top of his class. His achievements filled Bisi with pride. She worked even harder to provide for him, to give him the best possible education. One day, while Bisi and Ade were at the market, a familiar face caught Bisi's eye. It was Gbenga. He was older now, his youthful looks replaced by the lines of time and responsibility. He was dressed in fine clothes, a stark contrast to the simple attire he used to wear. He was with a woman, presumably his wife, and 2 young children. Bisi's heart pounded in her chest. She hadn't seen him in years, but the pain of his rejection was still fresh. She felt a sudden urge to confront him, to tell him about Ade, about the son he had never known. She walked towards him, her steps hesitant. "Gbenga," she said, her voice trembling slightly. He turned, his eyes widening in recognition. He looked at her with a mixture of surprise and discomfort. Before he could say anything, Bisi blurted out, "This is our son, Ade. He is a brilliant student, always at the top of his class." Gbenga's face paled. He looked at Ade and then back at Bisi. "I don't want anything to do with you," he said coldly. "I'm married now. Leave me alone." Bisi was stunned. After all these years, he was still the same cruel, heartless man. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she quickly blinked them back. She wouldn't let him see her pain. Ade, who had been standing quietly beside her, stepped forward. He looked at Gbenga with a mixture of pity and contempt. "Don't worry, Mama," he said, taking her hand. "We don't need him. We have each other." Bisi squeezed his hand, her heart swelling with love and gratitude. She knew in that moment that she had everything she needed in her son. Years passed. Ade's hard work and dedication paid off. He became incredibly successful, building a business empire that made him a wealthy and respected man. He never forgot his humble beginnings or the sacrifices his mother had made. He showered Bisi with love and gifts, ensuring she lived a life of comfort and luxury. He bought her a beautiful house near the neighboring town, a far cry from the tiny room she had rented when she first arrived. He made sure she lacked for nothing. Despite his wealth, Ade remained grounded and humble. He remembered the lessons his mother had taught him about hard work, honesty, and compassion. He was generous with his time and resources, helping those less fortunate than himself. Bisi, despite enjoying the luxuries her son provided, preferred a simple life. She cherished her quiet moments in her comfortable home, tending her garden and enjoying the company of her son and his family. She had no interest in the social world that surrounded Ade, preferring the peace and tranquility of her own company. One day, Ade came to visit her, a serious expression on his face. "Mama," he said, "I found someone I want to marry." Bisi's heart fluttered with a mixture of joy and apprehension. She had always hoped Ade would find love, but she also knew how easily things could go wrong. "Tell me about her," she said, her voice carefully neutral. Ade described the woman, whose name was Amara. He spoke of her beauty, her intelligence, her sophistication. He said she was everything he ever wanted in a wife. Although Bisi smiled and expressed her happiness for him, a small seed of doubt had been planted in her heart. She couldn't shake off a feeling of unease. Amara sounded wonderful, perhaps too wonderful. Bisi worried that Amara might be more interested in Ade's wealth than in Ade himself. A few weeks later, Ade brought Amara to meet Bisi. Bisi was polite and welcoming, but she observed Amara closely. trying to discern her true character. Amara was indeed beautiful and sophisticated, but Bisi detected a certain coldness in her eyes, a calculating glint that made her uncomfortable. After Amara left, Bisi confided in Ade. "My son," she said gently, "I'm happy for you, but I have a feeling about this woman. I don't think she truly loves you. I think she's after your money." Ade laughed. "Mama, you worry too much," he said. "Amara loves me for who I am." Bisi sighed. She knew she couldn't force Ade to see what she saw. "Okay," she said with a smile. "I am your mother. I will let you marry her, but I must test her first. If she doesn't pass, the wedding is off." Ade looked at her, confused. "Test her? What kind of test?" Bisi smiled mysteriously. "You will see," she said. "Trust me, the mother knows." And so, Bisi devised a plan, a secret test to uncover Amara's true intentions. She knew that only a true and loving woman would pass. The test would reveal Amara's heart, and Bisi would finally know if her son was making the right choice.